when it comes to people's feelings and sentiments. When you're entitled to feel sad. If there's something bad that happened to you many years ago, many months ago, ages ago, and you keep remembering it and it overwhelms you, you're not wrong. You should seek help for it, but it's not wrong that it hurts you still. Yaqub alayhi salam is entitled to his grief. He's entitled to cry out. But when they complain to him like this and they yell at him like this, what does it mean? Sometimes people are in these tragic situations, but the loved ones around them or the family around them is not very sensitive. They don't want to hear it. They have no one to talk to. We're actually now kind of learning, why has he been holding it in all these years? Because he had nobody to talk to. One time he opens his mouth and they snap. They don't give him a chance to speak. So what does he say? He says, قال إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. I am only complaining about the things that I'm letting out of my heart. Bath actually means to spread, like وَبَثَّ فِيهَا. Min kulli dabbatin, Allah says. When He spread on the land all kinds of creatures. Bath is tafriq aslan, it's to spread something out. But it's used in conversation to describe something you're holding in your heart and now you're spreading it out, you're letting it go. So he says, I'm only complaining about what I've been containing inside and I'm finally letting it out. And even when I do let it out, and all of the sadness that I've been pent up inside, all of that which I've kept inside, I'm only complaining to Allah, not to you, not to anybody else. إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. This is what I wanted to share with you, is one of the most commonly misunderstood, ayat in the Quran. It's not taken in its context. When somebody says, I'm having this problem or that problem, people say, Akhi, complain to Allah, don't talk to me. Because Allah says, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Yaqub alayhi salam said, I only complain to Allah. I don't talk about my problems to anybody else. What is the context of these ayat? In these ayat, he doesn't talk to his family because his family is not what? Supportive. He doesn't have anybody to talk to. He doesn't have anybody to share his grief with. That is when he turns to, I'm only complaining about my grief and I'm letting out my feelings and I'm only expressing my sadness to Allah. What he's essentially saying is, I have no one in my family that I can complain to. I have no one in my family that will understand my feelings. So the only one even when I do cry out, I have only Allah to cry out to. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he had a problem in his married life, he sought outside counsel. He sought help from the outside. This is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You would say he should only complain to Allah. You have places in the Quran, like for example, a woman comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says, my husband is divorcing me and he's saying I'm like his mother now. And she complains to him, and Allah records her complaint, وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. But before she did ishtiqa to Allah, it's تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا. She argues, she's debating with you about her husband. And then she complains to Allah. So she had somebody to go to first, and she expressed herself. And of course, then she took her matter to Allah. So it's oppressive to tell someone, don't seek help for your problem. You don't need to talk to anybody, just talk to Allah, and that should be good enough for you. That is not good advice. That is the situation of some people who have no support around them. When you have absolutely no support around you, then of course you still only have Allah. That's His circumstance. You have, later on, you're going to find that he's going to find so much comfort in his son. Binyamin also finds comfort in his brother. So here, حَتَّى تَكُونَ حَرَضًا أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْهَالِكِينَ, he finally ends, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I just want to recap just a couple of quick things before I conclude this. One thing I want to highlight is it's completely okay to cry. Crying is not the same as not having sabr. Yaqub alayhi salam is a man of sabrun jameel, and he cries so much his eyes turn white. Complaining is not the antithesis of sabr. It's not if you complain you've cried out and you're sad over something and you mention it even though it happened years ago. That doesn't mean you don't have patience. Those are two separate things. Yaqub alayhi salam is a man of sabr jameel, and he's at the same time a man of Ya asafa ala Yusuf. Oh my Yusuf! What has happened to Yusuf so many years later? That doesn't mean the man doesn't have sabr. So we shouldn't be insensitive to those who are suffering, especially in our families, those who are complaining in our families, and say, you need to have sabr. You shouldn't be crying. You shouldn't be complaining. You shouldn't be bringing up what happened years ago. Get over it already. We shouldn't use these kinds of words. We should have sensitivity to those who are in pain. We cannot feel what somebody else feels. You cannot feel what your son feels, what your daughter feels, what your spouse feels, what your parents feel. You cannot feel for them. They're entitled to their emotions. It's easy to dismiss them because we see them all the time and we don't see what the big deal is. You will never be able to see, I will never be able to see inside somebody else's heart. That is their pain is between them and Allah. They are just as entitled to that as any other human being. And so as I conclude this, I come back to the one that is in fact suffering from sadness. The one who has been grieving, like Yaqub alayhi salam for Yusuf. What does he tell his sons? He says, Ya baniya idhabu fatahassasu min Yusufa wa akhihi. Look, his sons just yelled at him, you remember? It's not too long ago they just yelled at him. And then he turns to the same sons and says, my sons, go. He's kind to them again. Go look for Yusuf. Go look for him. My goodness, go look for Yusuf. They just yelled at you, telling you you're crazy because you're still remembering Yusuf. He's dead, get over it. And he is so optimistic, even though he cries, his eyes have lost sight, he's crying over the name of Yusuf, he still believes in his heart that Allah Azza wa Jal I will not lose hope, Yusuf will be okay. And I'm pretty optimistic you'll still find him. Sadness is not the same as losing hope. They're not one and the same. He can cry, he can complain, but he will still hope that Yusuf alayhi salam is alive. And so he says, Tahassasu min Yusufa wa akhihi. Go find Yusuf and his brother. In that order. Subhanallah. And then he tells them something. It's amazing that this comes out of his mouth. He says, وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. And don't you lose hope in the relieving mercy of Allah. Don't lose hope that Allah will bring relief to you. Because people who lose hope in Allah bringing relief are none but the disbelievers. Only disbelievers and ungrateful people lose hope in Allah's mercy. Sadness and losing hope are not the same. Very easily when someone is sad, shaitan comes to them and says, there's no hope for you. Your life is over. Look at what's happened. This tragedy is the end of it. There is no light at the end of this tunnel. It's easy to drown somebody in that pessimism. But a believer, on the one hand, Allah Azza wa Jal gives him or her the license to express their emotions, to be able to feel the sadness and shed the tears. And on the other hand, Allah does not let them fall into hopelessness. On the other hand, once you shed those tears, you come back to Allah and you expect from Allah that He will see you through your problem. No matter how impossible it seems. How possible is it that a child that was thrown in the woods is going to be recovered 20 years later? That doesn't seem reasonable. You're just holding on to blind hope. You're not being logical. That's why they're yelling at their dad. But he has hope with Allah. He doesn't let that go. So we also have to have hope in Allah. Giving somebody hope is not the same as telling them not to be sad anymore. They're entitled to that, but at the same time, to your family members, to loved ones, and to yourselves, we have to have people that carry hope, that Allah will see us through our problems and things will become better. And if we don't do that, then to Allah Azza wa Jal, this is the same as, what's the difference between you and a disbeliever then? Imagine, we think of Iman as having Iman is somebody who believes in Allah, prays to Allah, accepts only one God, and disbeliever who denies Allah. These ayat are about an emotional relationship with Allah. Emotionally, we are absolutely convinced that we have to put our hopes in Him and He will see our hopes through. We have to be optimistic about Allah, and those who are not optimistic about Allah are as good as disbelievers. What's the point of your faith if you're not optimistic about Allah? If you don't expect good to come from Allah? Not only in the next life, but also in this life. Some people, shaitan comes to them and says, yeah, well, this life is going to be terrible anyway. I hope Jannah is better. That's the attitude they develop. This is also ya'is. This is also hopelessness. Yaqub alayhi salam is not saying, well, I guess I'll see Yusuf in Jannah. It's okay. No, he's saying, go look for Yusuf, not in the akhirah. Go look for him right now. Go in Egypt and go look for him. That's what he's doing. So we have to have optimism for how Allah will see us through in this life and in the next, and that's part of our relationship with Allah. And if we don't have that, then there's not much difference left in our hearts and of those who have no faith. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of those that are sensitive to other people's pain. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us truly people of sabr and people of hope in Allah. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim.